So you've published your book, you've gone through the launch phase, what's next for your book business? Now in today's video, I want to cover some general book business areas that all authors probably need to know about. Now this is basically the stuff that I wish someone had told me way back when I first published my non-fiction book in 2019. So this stuff would have really helped me increase sales, probably increase royalties. Some of this stuff may strike you as common sense. If it does, you're smarter than I am, because I didn't know most of this stuff back then. I basically winged it and I got burnt. I was disappointed. Sometimes I was very upset. So I wanted to do this video hopefully to help someone out there. Now over the years, as a chronic overthinker, I've reflected on what I wish I had known about the self-publishing book business. Basically, I wanted to share that with you today. If you're ready to find out what I didn't know about the whole book business thing, tickle that like button and let's dive in. I've got quite a few points, so let's jump into it. Now, point number one, it's more like a general business kind of thing. It's track sales and expenses, okay? Track sales and expenses. You can use apps and plugins or whatever you want to use. Personally, I use like Excel or Google Sheets, which is basically free. There's literally no reason you can't track your sales and expenses. Along the same lines is you want to play with pricing of your book. You want to try and find that sweet spot for you where you're still getting sales, but you're not like giving the book away, basically. So if you're making thousands of sales, for example, up the price a tiny bit and see what happens. When sales start to slow down, then you kind of know, okay, you got to ease off a little bit, but it's one of these things you got to just play with and test. Trial and error, basically. If on the other hand you're not making any sales, then you need to have a marketing plan. So if you don't have one of those, try and get one in place. Again, it's going to be trial and error. There's no right or wrong answer. Now point number two is also along the general business idea, following closely from the track sales and expenses. Keep records. You need to keep records. So you may need this for tax, maybe auditing purposes, but more importantly for me anyway, obviously tax and auditing purposes are really important, but for me, I need to analyze the data to see what's moving the needle. I need to know what's working and what's not. And the only way I'm going to be able to do that is if I track things. I need to get data so I know what's working and what's not. Now the worst thing to do is basically spend money on something and not know whether you can claim it or not as a business deduction maybe, but also you then don't know if you, so let's say you did something, let's say a book promo of some kind, and you didn't track it and you ran like 10 of these, and then 6 months passes by, maybe a year passes by, and you're like, oh, I'm going to do another book promo. Which one worked? You don't know because you didn't track the data. You didn't keep records. You need to track these things. Keep records and tracking sales and expenses, very, very important. I know these are kind of like common sense kind of things, but I really wish someone had just spelled it out for me. I need to know these things, and I'm hoping that by spelling it out for you, you now know, and you can do something with your book business. Now, if you appreciate hearing how ignorant and naive I was all those years ago, please go ahead and let me know in the comments, and give that like button a panda cuddle. The next one, point number three, is more along the increasing sales kind of line, which is essentially marketing and promotion. Now, I've got quite a lot over here, so let's just dive in straight away. Now, marketing to me is basically testing and gathering data, okay? So you got to test different things and then look at the data to see what is working. Whatever's working, try and do a bit more of that. Whatever's not working, do less of it, or don't do it at all. And don't be afraid to revisit stuff. So sometimes, if I'm doing something now, it may not work immediately, but I'm going to try again later on. And I will definitely suggest that you check like the seasonality, if there's anything about that. So if you're going to run like a book promo or something, your book is more like, romance, or let's say Valentine's Day related, okay? It's a Valentine's Day romance book. And you launch it, or you're trying to do a book promo in, I don't know, October, November kind of time. It may not have the same effect as if you ran a book promo during February, when Valentine's Day is around the corner, right? You need to kind of take seasonality into account. And if it doesn't work, so whatever doesn't work, I wouldn't label it a failure. I would just call it a learning experience, because you now know that doesn't work, which means you don't need to spend your effort or money on that thing now. And obviously, marketing wise, you can't ignore the free stuff. That should definitely continue. So like you got social media, make sure you keep posting. If you've got email lists, make sure you keep going with that. Obviously, there may be a cost associated depending on how you're running your email service providers and that kind of thing. So make sure those are kept up. I mentioned book promos before, but book promos, make sure you track these and try new platforms as well. So you should have some data from the book launch phase, but now that you're in kind of like the longer term thing, try doing book promos maybe every 3 to 6 months and see what happens. Test out new platforms, see which ones may work. Again, there's no guarantee any of them are going to work, but if you have the data, you can go back and say, okay, this one worked. Was the time of year, the seasonality, did that play a factor in? And then you can analyze the data from there. Now, ads, I just want to make a little brief comment. The social media or platform ads, again, same idea. Track what works, cut the ones that don't work, double down on the ones that do. There's so many platforms that you can try your ads on. You know, there's Facebook, there's TikTok or whatever, like Google, and, you know, all sorts of ads, and BookBub as well. So try them out and test it out. Marketing wise, there's also other things that you can do to increase sales. Things like interviews, guest posts, or, you know, appearing on people's channels or whatever it may be. This can be free. Sometimes there may be a cost, I don't know, but usually it's free. But basically getting your name out there, increasing readers' awareness of you and your books may lead to some sales. You know, there's no guarantee, but it doesn't hurt. There's so many things basically that you can do. These are just like a few ideas that you can, you know, look into a bit more if you want to. You don't have to do all of these, but definitely try and do some. Now, the point I'm trying to make about all this marketing stuff, you know, book promos, ads, social media, is that you need to gather data, track it, and see what's moving the needle, see what brings in more sales, and then do a bit more of that, right? Point number 4 is about increasing sales again, and that is to write the next book, okay? And again, there's going to be a whole process. You've got to write, edit, get the covers, the artwork, the merch, the book launch. You know, it's a similar process as before, but try to improve for every book you produce. Now, my first book was basically, I cobbled it together in like a few months, like 2 or 3 months. It wasn't well formatted. The cover looks cheap. You know, that's true. It looks cheap. I got it from Fiverr. I've never changed the cover, by the way. And I lucked out getting a narrator with a great voice. And the audiobook right now does really quite well. So considering how much effort I put in and how much I'm getting from it, you know, I'm lucky, I would say. So I produced more books since then, and my most recent book, I feel, is much more professionally done. The cover's way better, the formatting is head and shoulders better compared to the first one I did, and I took like 10-15 minutes using Atticus. The point is that with every iteration of a book that you produce, make sure you improve on the previous book. That's what I'm trying to do, and that's what I will do going forward. Now, there's this popular saying in the author community, and that is, nothing sells your book like your next book. So basically, get working on the next book and add it to your, you know, list of long-term assets basically, and your current book may sell more. Now, point number 5 is more an increasing profits kind of point, and I wish someone had told me this way earlier. It's distribution channels. Now, if you're unhappy or something with your current setup, maybe you want to look at, you know, a different distribution channel, and you can go directly. If you're using an aggregator like a Draft2Digital or something, you can go direct instead of using the aggregator. They usually give you better royalties. They sometimes offer better marketing tools as well. So going direct instead of, you know, going through an aggregator, for example, may give you an increase in royalty structure. But you got to balance this out with the time and admin that may be involved. So if you're going to sign up to like 50 different, you know, companies versus using an aggregator for like all of them, maybe there's a happy medium. Maybe you're happy to go with like 4 or 5 that you want to sign up to directly, and then the rest you go through an aggregator. That's okay as well. Personally, I'm happy if my ebooks distributed via D2D and KDP, and my paperback distributes via KDP and one via D2D print. Now, hardcover, I just went with KDP because that was just the easiest, but you may want to do it with, you know, Ingram Spark or something, you know. And my audiobooks are via ACX and Findaway Voices by Spotify. So that's what I do personally, but I could totally go direct to some of the vendors. But that's something I've chosen because of the time balance that I need to make. So I am aware that I am leaving some royalties on the table, but I want to make sure you know that you don't have to settle for that. If you want increased royalties, go direct. Sometimes they give you a better structure. They give you better marketing tools and stuff. And, you know, always do your due diligence on any platform you want to use before jumping in. Make sure you check them out fully. Vet them. There may be some hassle with transferring titles, delisting titles, so be aware of that. But, you know, as I say, it may be for you, it may be worth it to increase your royalty structure and getting additional tools for marketing and stuff like that. Make sure you cuddle that like button if you love that tip on increasing profits by adjusting distribution channels. The next one is more like a general business idea, and that is to make sure you account for taxes that you may have to pay. I know it's not a popular topic, and this is not something I'm going to elaborate on because everyone's circumstances are different. You have to consult qualified professionals. I'm not a qualified professional. Now, for example, there are completely different reporting issues if you run a company versus if you're running it as a sole trader or in your own business and in your own name, basically. You know, it's completely different. And there are a lot of issues to consider, and it's all kind of personalized to your circumstances. So my best advice here is plan to pay taxes, seek professional advice like an accountant or tax professional to guide you through this area so that you know not only how much tax you have to pay, but also the most efficient ways to extract profit from this business. This is not something I can tell you. You've got to kind of seek professional advice on this. Now, finally, this is like a general thing, really, general point, and that is to diversify into other income streams. Now, I've got a few points, a few ideas that you can look into. So let's hop in. Now, firstly, your author brand or your brand of merch. You know, think about about it, like t-shirts, mugs, cups, stickers, you know, all those kind of things, they can be all done print on demand with zero inventory to hold, right? You can use places like Amazon Merch on Demand, Redbubble, Zazzle, you know, there's so many print on demand platforms. It's up to you which one you choose. There may be other opportunities beyond book sales only, stuff like books becoming films, licensing for foreign rights. I'm just guessing here, but you want to consult probably a lawyer to make sure everything's legit. Obviously do your due diligence before you get into business with anyone or any company, you know, but that's a potential opportunity there to diversify into a different income stream. You can also sell directly from your website, and you know, whatever assets you've got full control over. The only issue is you will need to drive traffic. So you could, you know, market your book, you could do ads, but basically sometimes readers, don't be surprised, some readers want to buy directly from authors. That is a potential, right? Look into that if you want to sell direct. There's also massive opportunity for speaking gigs, consultations, cross-selling of other products or services you may have. This is probably more easily understood for non-fiction authors, but there's a space for fiction authors too. So let me give you a couple of examples, okay? Now, for the fiction author, for example, you might do author readings, teach others about writing craft, or maybe you teach them about book marketing or anything about publishing processes or whatever it is. These can be paid events, like a paid speaker, or maybe you offer courses or consultations for a fee, right? So that's, you know, one example. The non-fiction sort of example for authors would be much easier to understand. You might want to establish yourself as an authority figure, so you might do speaking engagements. These may be paid. You may sell books at events, you know, obviously consultations or mentorship or something like that. Look into those as a potential avenue to expand on your business. Now, part of selling books is to get more social proof, aka reviews. Now, I've got an entire playlist right here to help you get more book reviews. Click on that if you're interested in that. Now, if you're working on your first book or your next book and you want to learn more about budgeting for your book business, start with this video right here. By the way, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already.